So knowing about this objects concept is crucial because all values are objects in the end, as you learned. But here my goal is not to set this just to some purple background color. Instead, I wanted to have a nice gradient. Now this can't be achieved with background color because that wants a single color. And scaffold also has no other argument that we could set that would allow us to add a gradient background. Instead, what we can do here is we can add another new widget between scaffold and center so that it wraps center and therefore implicitly also text by right-clicking on center and refactoring this. And here we want to wrap this with a container, which is another widget provided by Flutter. And container is a widget that's very useful for configuring styling and layout settings. Now here, after adding container, I get some red squiggly lines. And if we hover over that, we learn that we should remove const, because that seems to be responsible for these red squiggly lines. And indeed, if you remove const here in front of material app, they go away, and you can now re-add const in front of center. Container is simply a widget provided by Flutter that doesn't support setting it to const. And therefore, you also can't set some parent widget that's higher up in this widget tree to const. It is what it is, but your IDE clearly tells you where you can and can't add const. So that's pretty good. But of course, we got more blue squiggly lines here now. But the reason for that simply is that at the moment, Dart and our code editor thinks that we're unnecessarily using container. And we do. If we don't configure anything, it's a useless wrapper, because if you save this and you reload, you will see that nothing changes about the app, except for the background color, since I removed the background color on scaffold, but nothing else changes. But of course, our plan is not to do nothing here. Instead, container now also gives you many useful arguments that you can set. For example, it provides a decoration argument. And this allows you to add various kinds of, decoration to the container, and therefore also to the child elements inside of that container. Now, decoration wants a decoration argument, so an argument of type decoration, and such a value can be created, for example, with the built-in box decoration constructor function. There actually also is a decoration option here in this suggestions menu, but this is actually not the right thing to use here. Indeed, you can't use it if you try to use it, because it's a so-called abstract class, and we'll learn more about classes later. For the moment, it's enough to know that you can't use that, but you can use this box decoration constructor function, and this will then also give you such a decoration object. Of course, it will give you a box decoration object, but as you learned, values can be of multiple types, and box decoration objects are also of type decoration. Just as material app is not just of type material app, but also of type widget. This might all sound confusing, but you're just learning it here. You're just getting started with it. You will get a lot of experience with that over time as you're using all these features. Now, this box decoration constructor function, which we're calling here, to build such a box decoration object, then also supports various arguments that can be set. For example, the gradient argument, which sounds just about right for what we're planning to do, because our goal is to add a gradient here. So the gradient argument can be set here, and that then wants a value of type gradient. Now, there are different ways of creating gradients, for example, a radial gradient, or what I want to do here, a linear gradient. This is another constructor function that creates a linear gradient, which is also of type gradient, and which therefore is a value we can set for this gradient argument. And this linear gradient constructor function wants even more arguments. And what we're doing here is quite typical for Flutter development. You often end up nesting widgets and/or configuration objects into each other so that they can work together and give you the overall desired user interface. Don't forget to add those commas after all the closing parentheses to make sure that your code is styled in a readable way so that you never lose track of how these things are related. And here for a linear gradient, there are, again, more things we can set. Most importantly, this colors thing here, this colors argument. And this colors argument now wants a special kind of value.